That need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023. We're a couple of days away from Cinco de Mayo, so let me get ahead of things, be early for once. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Have a margarita for us. We got a good one for you today. Fresh off back-to-back wins in the NHRA Fuel Tech Pro Modified Drag Racing Series. We got a good buddy of mine, somebody who has, honestly, the first time I met this cat, rather intimidating individual. I met him when he was partnered up with Shane Molinari. There's a blast from the past, right? The legendary gold Firebird black vinyl top. I mean, it wasn't actually vinyl. It was painted on there, but it still looked bitchin'. Anyways, bumped into him, I believe, the first time in the pits at like the NHRA US Nationals, walking around in the gravel. Anyways, long story short, he went from invested in a team to committed to competing at the front with amongst all the best and brightest and baddest pro mod racers in the world. Like I said, he's won 2 races to start the 2023 season, made an impressive showing at the Drag Illustrated World Series of Pro Mod back the first weekend of March. Let's give it up for my good buddy, friend of all drag racers, the one, the only, Justin Bond. What's up, big dog?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on here.
Thanks for joining. Do you remember that? Like, I believe I can't remember. Was that right around me trying to round up people to come to the Denver race? I think it was. I think I was over begging you to come to the World Series of Pro Mod out in Bandimere in 2017. Is that right?
Yeah. Drag racing, honestly, for me is kind of all that same story on repeat. What you're telling me right there. Like, I started out in 2010 drag racing by going to watch a hockey game at my buddy's house. And when I got there, the guy had a bunch of race cars. And a week later, I owned a super comp car. And and Pro Mod, similar story. I was at the Spring Fling event of all places with Molinari, and we drank way too much and decided that he wanted to go Pro Mod racing. And so I promised him that I would find him $25,000 a year in sponsorship. And I think that year alone, I gave him 100 of my own money. Like, we were just full crackheads. Yeah.
Hockey and beer. We owe a lot to hockey and beer with this story.
It's like Pulp Fiction. Bury the needle. Bury the needle, boy.
Isn't that the case, though? I mean, like, were you at all surprised, like, how quickly the hook was set in you when it comes to pro modified racing? Because it's funny. I mean, we've got mutual friends. I think about guys like Danny Rowe, Steve Matusik. I mean, the list goes on. Shane. They can't even come around this shit anymore. You know what I mean? Because they can't be around it. It's like an alcoholic frequenting the bar. I mean, you see these guys that leave the sport of drag racing, specifically pro mod, and most of the time, you basically never see them ever again. Are you surprised how addictive this whole situation has been?
Dude, it's rehab. They go to rehab. You can't go to drug and alcohol counseling and hang out at the bar.
No, you can't.
This is just normal. It's just normal.
You can.
Yeah.
JT owns a bar.
Yeah.
And not anymore.
I knew he wasn't. I knew he wasn't right.
Yeah, that was a great endeavor for him.
I went through rehab once when I had it.
But I mean, were you surprised though? I mean, have you been surprised like about getting involved in this sport? Because you've went from kind of being on the fringe, right? You know, dipping your toe in here and there. Shane Molinari obviously made a full pull there and ran a lot of races. But now you're like involved in organizing some of this stuff. You sponsor a race. I mean, you've got a lot of involvement at this point in time. Are you at all surprised by that?
Well, as you get older in life, you start to realize that you can't just take, you need to give. So a big part for me is like I coach my kids in their lacrosse until all of a sudden they say, hey, you're not good enough coach anymore. which has been happening of recent. But in the drag racing world, I mean, I'm the vice president of the local track, which is owned by a car club. And on the pro mod scene, you know, I on a little bit of a committee that helps generate some funding for the NHRA pro mod class. And I just think that you just you cannot go through life just taking. You need to be a servant as well.
Well, hey man, God, from your mouth to God's ears, bro.
That's true, man.
No, it is true.
Everybody's always taking, and you've got to give back. I mean, there wouldn't be anything to take if there wasn't for individuals like you.
Oh, well,
dude.
but we need all of it, and that was the big thing that was kind of my tagline. Not just me. There's a slew of us, and I didn't write down all the names, but I can tell you, in NHRA Pro Mod, there is 2 drivers that single-handedly are very unrecognized that have done the most for the class, and I want to recognize them, and that's Stan Shelton and Marty Robertson. Those guys were just boom, smackdown, whatever it takes. We're going on TV and we're paying everybody $35,000 an event, and we're racing 10 races. Yep. Right. And that's tiny little bit embellished, but it's about 95% true.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing.
Well,
and I've told these guys a lot. There are times that I've been genuinely concerned because our sport, I mean, and I'm not talking just pro mod. I mean, you talk about across the board, where would we be if it weren't for people like that? You know what I mean? Because they join a long list of people that have selflessly contributed to the sport of drag racing for the greater good. I had a conversation in Charlotte this past weekend, and it was like, in some ways, it feels like drag racing at times has succeeded in spite of itself, like because it's directly related to this uniquely passionate group of people. Like, because I don't know that this exists everywhere. I mean, these guys, like you said, passion's one thing, but being willing to get your checkbook out, that's a whole other thing.
Right. And I mean, I think the one thing that we're all unified on is, I mean, it's not an endless checkbook. If we're all businessmen and if we don't see some sort of return or some sort of, let's say, uptick, we're going to just call it DOA, right? Baby's dead on arrival. But this thing is trending the right way. And I think that I'm just saying, like, those 2 single men, I mean, there's a plethora of people, but I'm just saying I could go off with 12 names or tell you 2. And those 2 names are very unrecognized and have given more financial effort than any single-handed person has. And like I will tell you, effort, work, sweat, blood, sweat, and tears is Stan Shelton. He is the MVP of NHRA Pro Mod by far.
It's like that in regular life. You know, there's people that go out of their way to make sure that everybody's included or to make sure that, you know, that you have plans to go do something. You know, like say you and your buddies are wanting to plan a vacation somewhere, or a bunch of couples. It never happens unless one couple steps up to the plate, you know, puts it on their credit card, makes the plans. Here's where we're going. Here's what we're doing, you know, and then everybody follows. But you have to have those individuals to step up or you'll never go anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, and Stan's, I mean, new to the sport, and I think that he's quickly fallen in love with it. And especially in Charlotte, he's doing the hospitality deal. He's got the cornhole game. So it goes really beyond just writing a check and financially supporting it. He's trying to actually create a community, create some camaraderie amongst the drivers, the teams, the crews, so that everyone sort of unifies together. Because that, to me, is the strength of NHRA Pro Mod, is when everyone gets on the same page and this small dedicated group is unified and moving towards these things as a group. So that's great to see. And again, Marty also stepping up to the plate with the TV package, especially. I know he was heavily involved in that.
And those are 2 guys that like supported us at World Series of Pro Mod too. And I thought it was cool that like Stan, he unfortunately didn't qualify down at the World Series of Pro Mod. And I tried to remind everybody that was involved that like, that's no knock on anybody. Like plenty of really good cars and really good drivers and great teams didn't qualify for that race. It was hyper competitive. However, Stan was still like so gracious. You know what I mean? He was like so thankful to be involved, thankful to be there. And it just, when people, because most of the time, or at least in my experience, when you start getting the the calls and the complaints or whatever, it's typically directly correlated to poor performance. You know what I mean? So whenever you have someone that had a rough weekend that still is excited and fired up and cheering you on, it's like, okay, this is a special type of person. So I'm glad you said that, Justin, because
Annette Summers in here, another one you can't forget, the Whiteleys in J&A. For years, they supported our race. They still support a lot of cars and a lot of classes out there, but we're hugely involved in pro mod, I think, up until the last year or so.
But they're
and racing.
Annie Whiteley, go ahead.
The one crummy thing about racing is it doesn't really recognize the past, right? And so of course I think Jim and Annie are awesome, and I'm not counting them out. I'm just saying, like, the current people today in 2023 that are Boku active are those two guys in NHRA Pro Mod. Now, Jim and Annie, they're going to be super involved in other sanctioning bodies, and they are the shit, pardon my words, in other sanctioning bodies. And I'm just talking today, right now. I mean, I'm running over NHRA. I think Jim's a badass. I really do, and Annie's an amazing racer, and I think they are probably the king and queen of NHRA, in all honesty. I mean, of course, you got John Force and his wife, but I mean, these are blue collar workers that are chucking down. John Force eats out of drag racing. Jim Whiteley doesn't eat on Monday because of what he did on Sunday. Right? It's a big difference.
And I think so. That's extremely well said, Justin, which is not surprising coming from you, because you always have like these really hard line takes on stuff, but they're almost always right. And I'm curious, do you think that that's like part of what's happening right now with the NHRA Pro Mod series, and what needs to happen is where NHRA kind of recognize who their customers are? Because in my opinion, like the days of John Force and like these guys with big sponsors paying them, earning their living drag racing, I mean, those people are really few and far between. Would you agree? I mean, it's way more people such as yourself. Like you said, whatever happens on Sunday, regardless, I'm going to be at work on Monday, right? I mean,
I think it's over. It's over. I mean, poor Alan Reinhart, and I like Alan, but he's making a lot of fun of Ricky. And Ricky's the last full-time guy. Yeah. You know, if Stevie was to jump back in a car, Stevie was a full-time guy that drove the car, and the winnings put food on his table. Stevie now has built himself a business that, you know, he has a customer base, and his ideal situation is to deliver performance and success to the customer. I mean, this weekend we had 20 cars, I think. So there's only going to be one winner, right? And it's no different than Proline offers that service to Jose and which was Marcus Burt this weekend. But I'm just saying, like, the professional, if my bank account changes on Monday morning by what I did on Sunday, that's a dying deal. Like, Ricky's the last one left in Pro Mod, unless you guys can correct me.
Mike, I can't think of anybody, to be honest. I mean, no.
Like, even Mike Janis Sr., they leased their car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of anybody else. And
well, this is a conversation that gets had a lot, because this is a fun one.
So I think that the
top,
NHRA,
even in Top Fuel, there's only a couple.
Yeah.
Right. So NHRA, I think, I don't want to talk for them. I've never been in one of their executive meetings, but if like what I do is business, and we would always be talking about our customer base and how the demographic of where it is and what our target market is. And I think that their target market is changing to business people. I think it's just, you know, Brad will tell me it's just a high dollar country club. We just don't have golf clubs. We got V8s with some sort of power add-on on them, but that's all this is some high dollar country club, right? And
there might be more people in no prep that are racing, you know,
yes,
for a living.
Oh, yes. Yeah, for a fact.
Yeah.
Than all of the NHRA pro classes. I don't know. That's crazy,
maybe. Right? I don't know. We'd have to compare.
That'd be close, though, I bet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be there, because there aren't that many. Wes and I talked about that this weekend. There just aren't that many left across all of the pro classes.
And I think part of that, though, is how society has shifted. I mean, that no prep deal is something that the average, I don't know, pick a number, 20 to 35-year-old can relate to.
Yeah.
I don't think that the average 20 to 35-year-old can relate to what's going on at the racetrack on a pro level. They don't even know what nitromethane is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's Wes likes to call them dinosaurs as far as the nitro cars, that maybe we're seeing the last of those walking the earth, and that where are we going to even get the stuff to run these cars? And
I hope not. I mean, guys, you got to see the forest for the trees.
Yeah,
we got new stuff happening. You got Tony Stewart coming over. I think that's massive for our sport. And I think that if Tony was to bring another one of his homeboys from NASCAR over, I think that you're going to see, in all honesty, I do feel that there's a revival. This thing needed some new blood.
And you said,
I agree, man. I mean, we've
Tony
seen
on Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s podcast talking about drag
he
racing.
Killed it.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And
to have,
that's
I mean,
awesome.
that's why we made him our ambassador of the year, last year, because I think that we're guilty by association now. Like, you get somebody that's an influencer, like at a high level, like that word gets thrown around a lot, but Tony Stewart's got some pull. Like, people listen to him, people follow what he does. And when he's over here talking about how incredible this whole deal is and how much he loves it, that's a massively important thing. And you're right, Justin, we get a handful more of those guys to get involved. It's on like Donkey Kong. And I do think that I had this conversation with my wife, like, no matter how passionate I am personally about pro modified racing, like, pro mod's what I do. It's what I'm into. It's what I love. It's what I want to be a part of. But we would be an idiot to turn, idiots collectively to turn a blind eye to the needle mover that Top Fuel and Funny Car is. I mean, those are our sport's highest level, right? I mean, that's the highest level of our sport. And if you want to, I mean, look no further than the crowd that was there in Gainesville. Like, that was unbelievable. And I just don't know that happens in our sport's current form without Top Fuel and Funny Car. Like, you can get a big crowd, don't get me wrong, but man, they're a difference maker. And we would be wise as a sport to be finding ways to make those guys happy, get more people involved in that class, in that type of racing. But I think you're right. It's more about finding the next business people, the guys that want to go to a 300-mile-an-hour country club.
Right. I mean, and that's all this is. Business is pretty simple. It gets down to two things. It's income and expenses. So Tony comes over there, he wants to make a business out of it. And at the end of the day, it's how much revenue can he pull in versus what his expenses are. And if there's a little cheese left in the middle, he's got a business. Right. Yes, I'm sure he's like me. He's just got the needle, John Travolta style. The wind lights the needle. You get addicted to the wind light. Right. But on the secondary, he's like, so what's the cheese string looking like? And then, I don't know if it'll be Hendrick, but you got Hendrick, for example. I'm pretty sure they're still sponsoring Greg Anderson.
Yeah.
We need to get like them to come over. And then all of a sudden, you got two, you got one more. And it's like, okay, we really missed Don Schumacher, but there's evolution. I mean, come on. They came out with the Titanic and now we're on cruise ships all the time, not talking about the Titanic. Right.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I can't argue, man. I really do. There have been times I've been genuinely concerned about the future of nitro racing, and I remain concerned because I do think some things have to change, but there's enthusiasm now that I haven't seen in a long time. There's some interest. There's two things that I think also, which I think we have going for the sport. And in life, we call it supply and demand. I like to call it supply and command, which is Brainerd or not Brainerd, but the Denver track leaving, Vandermeer.
For example, like Vandermeer. So we have this little epidemic going on where we're losing racetracks. But I'm also going to tell you that's a good thing because the supply is dropping. And as the supply drops, the demand goes up. So is it all bad? We're going to get a sense of urgency where people are like, I got to go to this drag race because I don't know how many more there's going to be.
Yeah, you can see that.
We saw that in Phoenix because it's like up in the air what's going to happen with that track. And they've been packing that place out for the last couple of years. And that's a great way of looking at it. I've never even really thought about that it could be by shrinking the supply, we increase the demand and the interest in the tracks that are left. So, I think that's valid. I think it's super valid, to be honest. And I think it could help the NHRA's scheduling situation where I've heard race teams for years, saying that they wish there were a few less races, not a ton, but 21, 22, it's a big bite, especially for business people. You get this thing down, in the 18 race range,
The only way that happens, unfortunately, is if a couple of these tracks go away. And that's terrible. You know what I mean? I hate it. That's the last thing we want to happen to anybody. But I agree. There's a silver lining to that.
Yeah.
Well, there may be
sword,
like
it's a double-edged
like,
sword though for the guy that's
Yeah.
making a living doing it. But there's, like you said, there's not that many.
right. But the other side of that coin is instead of paying 10 grand to the winner at Pro Mod, pay 20.
Yeah.
Right. I can tell you from my involvement in our local racetrack here in Mission, British Columbia, Canada, that we had to do that. So we didn't have financial prosperity until we kept the chain on the gate more often. We kept the gates closed. We ran less races. We got better attendance. We got better quality of cars. Everything got better when we offered less.
You didn't water it down.
That's right.
Dude, I tell you what, people out there in the world right now need to be like taking notes because that was honestly one of the first things that I heard, Justin. Like, let's all be transparent and tell like real stories. When we were like Sunday afternoon of the World Series of Pro Mod and Monday, it was one call after another. Like, oh, you need to do 3 of these. You need to do 5 of these. You need to do a series. And I'm like, no, we need to do 1. You know what I mean? Because I want to keep the gates closed. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep the gates, the chain on the gate, because I think that that's what is going to keep the demand high, because it'll be watered down overnight. Do you agree?
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing of it is I'll say to you, so you make a series out of it. You already got NMCA, PDRA, NHRA. Here you go. So somebody there has got to go by the wayside, or I guess, I don't know. I hear there's a number about 175 pro mods in the nation. What's the number, Wes?
200 roughly.
Okay, so let's say 200, and I'm going to tell you
North America. That's North America.
Yeah, okay, but let's just say let's just use a number of 200, and you want to make a 4-race series. So how many cars do you want to have? It's pretty simple math. You want to have 30 cars. So 30 cars times 4 races, that's 120, and every one of them needs 25,000. So 120 times 25,000. Well, you're looking at $3 million. So if people don't have $3 million laying around, your races aren't going to go off. It's pretty simple.
I mean, It's hard to argue, man. I mean,
interest rates are tripled in the last 12 months. So I just don't think there's $3 million laying around.
Yeah,
I agree. It's tough because we want, if 1's good, 3's better. If 3's pretty good, if 3's better, 5 would be better, even better than that. And I agree with you because right now there's a lot of great places to race. I mean, you look at the NHRA Pro Mod Series, I think it's as strong as it's ever been, right? I mean, the payouts are good. The sponsor support is solid. You've got, a lot of prominent teams competing in it. It feels like the tides have turned with NHRA's interest and commitment to Pro Modified. But then you've also got the PDRA, who've had 2 great events to start the season. Midwest Drag Racing Series getting ready to roll into Tulsa for a doubleheader. The NMCA Extreme. There's a lot of good places to race, and that's excluding Northeast Outlaw Pro Mod Association. I mean, and all the regional series that exist. I don't know we need any more.
No, and I'm going to tell you right now, like it is my personal goal and our little committee's goal that we won't be happy until we have 30 pro mods back at the gate at NHRA. We want to have 30 of them. We want it to be a dogfight. I mean, I used to pay $5,000 when I was with Shane to enter a race, to buy a spot, to even get a trailer in the door. And then when we qualified, it was like, oh, wow, we've won. Like, we've qualified. We don't even care what happens on Sunday.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? Like, why do you think that the fields aren't as big as they used to be? I mean, everybody's got their
it's I don't want to make anybody upset. I just think it's simple. It's just mismanaged. When Danny Rowe and Matusik handed it off, it didn't go off well. And I'm not going to get into the blame game. It just didn't go off well. It could have went off differently. And we're going back to that. I mean, we've got the Finish Line Consultants deal going on, which is basically our association. We all pay some dues to it. It's a company that will basically be nonprofit. The books are open. So if you buy a membership, you can see the books, all the NHRA payouts come to us. We port the money over to NHRA before the race. We basically are signing some, guarantees that we will pay you out. And that's where guys like myself and Stan and Marty are super involved is kind of putting the money where the mouth is. And I'm telling you, it's not me. It's not just Stan. It's the whole thing. And I mean, I like calling up a guy like Chip King and saying, we need you back, but we don't want you back just to race. We want your voice back. We want your opinion back. We want to know why you left, and we want to know what it's going to take to keep you here. And it's not just going to end with him. Like, man, if we could get Robert Patrick back, if we could get Harold Martin, like, we want them all.
Right.
30 guys at the gate. Where's Bob Ram? We miss Bob.
Yeah, man. I mean, and I remember that weekend, I mean, and again, not to get into the blame game, but it was really this passing of the torch that we hadn't seen. It felt like the NHRA Pro Mod series had reached its peak, the pinnacle moment for that series. To your point, Justin, there was like 34 cars trying to qualify for the NHRA US Nationals, and there was this kind of ceremonious passing of the torch to the NHRA saying, hey, here is a really solid program with a really solid racer base. Let's have you guys take it over. And, you know, unfortunately, there's a bunch of things that went awry. But one of the things that we heard the most about, and I think we can kind of still talk about this today because it's a hot button subject, is the parity issues. There was a lot of belief that the combination, it wasn't an equal playing field out there. Right now, how do you feel about the parity in Pro Modified? Because I think that's one of the most talked about things that exist in Pro Modified. And personally, I think it's a good thing. A lot of people get up in arms about this stuff, but it really does drive conversation. It keeps people fired up and talking about this stuff and posting on the internet. So it's not all bad, but what do you make of it? Because you're a guy that built a brand new screw type supercharger car for the NHRA season, but ultimately decided to stick with your very competitive ProCharger powered car. I mean, what's the lay of the land right now, 2 races into the season? How do you feel about things?
I made myself a promise when I went on the show today that I wasn't going to leave with one new enemy. So my answer,
can't do that.
my answer is it goes like this. I think that there's way too many power adder / combinations. You could show up with 6 different things in tech, 6 different combos. I think it needs to be half of that or less. But then people go, well, that's not Pro Mod. And I'm going, right. But remember that Pro Mod, that deal died. We ended up with no cars. And even right now, we have 6 combinations, but how many are showing up?
Yeah. We
had 1 nitrous car. We have Roots. We have ProCharger. And I mean, the screw thing is kind of dying. So we have 4. Let's say we have 4. And Ricky's
no turbo
Ricky's
cars.
No, and Ricky's a badass. And honestly, I wish he'd race forever. But I can tell you, I spent some time with him in his pit, and he's getting up there. You know, he looks tired. You know, so let's just say you got three power adders, for lack of better words, even though he's number 1. So I'm not discounting him. Like, he put a whooping on all of us. So my answer is there's too many power adders. You'll never achieve parity. And I think it's like herding cats. Like, go down to a little cat sanctuary and try to herd all the little kittens into an area. You can't herd cats. It doesn't work.
Yeah, we ran into that with World Series. I mean, but it is easier on an 8th mile platform than the quarter-mile deal. So and it's
easier because you did it once. The weather didn't change a bunch. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
right?
that is the issue with NHRA Pro Mod. You go through
but like
all the seasons.
We've loaded up. We've been to 2 tracks, and we're going to go to another one in Chicago, and the barometer and the this. Everything's so different, right? Yeah. And yeah, Wes. I got a little problem. I mean, we're dealing with the CFO here, and he goes, $500,000 to go slower. Sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad.
He said, well, you promised me that you would sell that old car. So that's how I told you it was okay to build the new car. I said, sorry, Dad.
You gotta have options these days. But those options, let's talk about this too. Those options will cost you now in points. This is the crazy thing that they.
The funny part about all that is before we opened the checkbook, that rule was never talked about.
Yeah, so so what are we talking about here, Wes? With the penalty?
So to fill people in, and this is news, and honestly, this was news to me this past weekend in Charlotte. Apparently, if you switch combinations, so say you're Justin Bond and you run a ProCharger combination, if you make a switch to another combination, and then switch back to your original combination, you get docked 40 points in the championship point standings. So that is really the first I've ever heard of anything like that. I think it has a multitude of impact. Like it impacts this deal on a lot of different levels. But it is kind of interesting because we're not too far removed from like threats of people racing various cars. I mean, for years we heard Stevie Jackson talk about, I'm going to have a nitrous car, a blower car, a turbo car, whatever I need
Ricky
to
rolled
win.
around with that turbo car in his trailer forever, right? And I mean, it's something that's been threatened. We saw Matt Smith do the switch in Pro Stock Motorcycle.
Well, I think Matt Smith's the one that got us the rule.
I think so. I was going to say, let's call this
he was
the
talking
Matt
about
Smith
that,
rule.
wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree in life, and
that's a fact with those two.
So his daddy taught him how to do that, and he drove around with a couple of bullets for a different gun and found a different gun and went with it. And you know what? The rules are meant to be,
Tested,
push around,
right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
boundary setting.
Yeah, but and we back to the going through the different seasons and the challenge of that. I always kind of looked at it like set the rules and let it roll through the whole season, unless there's just an absolute obvious problem. Because when we start the season, one combo is going to have the benefit. We get into the summer, the hot months, we go to Bristol, nitrous is going to have the advantage. Then it cools back off and it goes back to the boosted cars. And that's the way it always was in IHRA. I think NHRA held to that for quite a while. But now with the rapid changing of the rules, which is something that I think some people want to see more of that and more effort to maintain parity, but it can go a little bit off the rails, especially financially when you guys are facing the kind of things you are now. So maybe a little more patience, I think, is what's needed with the rule combinations.
It does seem like that you get a lot of knee-jerk reaction rules, and what was a couple years ago was really bad, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, what's your take on that, Justin? I mean, do you appreciate? Let's say you're in a combination that's behind the 8-ball. Do you want to see changes made, or would you rather say, let's see how this plays out, let's ride it out, let's see how the weather changes?
So I think where we're at is that we are collectively, all as a group, are in an area where we have a bunch of little shitstorm arrows coming at us, there was probably some illegitimate operating race cars. There was some power adders that weren't vetted long enough. So like I own a business, we manufacture farm machinery. We used to, when we were younger, we would build one machine, we'd try it. I'd phone everybody that would buy one, and I would sell as many as I could until one day I realized that now I got like 15 problems because we didn't like build a R&D test machine. Well, now we build an R&D test machine and we'll let it run for minimum 1 year before we go into production. So I think that's a little bit what happened with the Pro Charger was like, hey, we need to get cars out here. We want an SFI power adder that you could buy at Racer Walmart, right? And them all be the same. And it didn't get vetted long enough. And that's no fault of anybody's. It was like, hey, we built this engine, we stuck the Pro Charger on it. And then it was like, shit, if we put this compressor on a different engine and we figure out that it likes this torque converter and it likes this gear ratio, like we can go way faster.
Right.
So I just think that it was premature. My answer is, do I want quick rule changes? I'll be honest with you. I think that quick rule changes are good, but they have to be the way that Lonnie's doing them now, which is like 7 pounds I would be fine with. Like, hey,
small change.
This little puck, bolt that on this race. Okay, that's not going to wreck my torque converter. That's not going to wreck anything. It's the 40 pounds at a time, or a rev limiter, or something crazy that they do, like overdrive. Like those Roots guys, when they went from 14.5 to 16.5, I'm going to tell you what, it's almost like a start over. When you look at the screw deal, when I started building that car, so I had that car last June in my shop in Georgia. I think we were 75% overdrive in June. And I just said, well, you know what? I'll just finish the year out in the Pro Charger car and start the new year. Stevie talks about it. There's no parts to get. And there is no parts to get right now. So it was to get all the parts to put it together was a little difficult. But the other thing is nobody wants to work. Like, it's hard to find people that'll build you the exhaust and all that and whatnot. And I did in the end. And I'm so thankful for all the people that helped me get my car together. Big shout out to Ryan and John down there at RK, get my car done for me. But, you know, we had others along the way at ProWire and I'm drawing a blank. Robert Hayes worked on it a little bit too. So I'm really thankful, but it's hard. Like there's not an abundance of people that want to do this stuff right now. So the car had 3 rule changes before I ever did a burnout. Right.
That's crazy.
But now it's backed into such a rut that, you know, Stevie qualified or didn't make it at 591 and Belushi went 578 and Ricky Smith went 566.
Yeah.
So you're going, no, we should leave the rules all year. Well, then I'm going to tell you, Stevie, stay home. Belushi, stay home. Maybe you guys go halfers on a cigarette boat and some girls.
I mean, it's hard to argue, man. I mean,
yeah. But, you know, and I've said this all along. I mean, they have the Roots package today that Stevie went 564 in. Frank Manzo went 565 or 564 that year in Topeka, and he stood on the starting line like Babe Ruth did at bottom of the 9th and said she's going that way. That's exactly how Frank did it. And Frank is the man when it comes to Roots. They wadded their stuff up this week before the race, and I feel real bad for them, and I can't wait to see them back at the racetrack. But nobody else went 560 whatever this weekend, and you know what? Okay, so let's just say, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. The weather only conduced of a 70 flat. Well, there was no 70 flat with the Roots either. Like they're not running where they should.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the thing, right? Like parity is such a thing that I don't know. I don't know how you're ever going to find true harmony and happiness. To me, it's like a moving target.
I think that what you're trying to create is the illusion of parity. And
right.
Because I think it's always going to be an illusion, right?
Right.
There are so many variables. You talk about effort, you talk about politics, you talk about sandbagging. You know, there's so many things that go into this. And like you
let me talk to you about effort right quick. I want to just get this one out there. You know, Stevie made some comments that nobody worked harder than him and whatnot. And I can appreciate all of that. But when our cars aren't racing, they're testing. Like I can tell you that Khaled put 75 runs on in the Middle East this winter. And then I brought my screw car out and started running in Bradenton. And then I brought Belushi's screw car out because he has 2 screw cars now. So Personette would be remote tuning in the Middle East and standing in Bradenton. Like we got to have over 100 runs on our stuff, just to go slower. Like I paid $500,000 to go slower, and I mean, what I'm saying is that effort in is effort out. You buy a puppy, when it becomes a dog, is it a good dog or a shitty dog? Is all in how you trained it, and I mean. Like last year, we came to Canada and I tested the new Pro Charger rules and didn't win the race because I was running the rules that were supposed to be started out at Indy, right? If you guys remember, we got a rule change.
Yeah.
And this year, yet again, after Norwalk, we will race every weekend in June. Because after Norwalk, we're putting team drivers in my truck and we're bringing Khaled's car and my car back here to Mission, BC. We're going to run our Pro Mod cars here, right? But going back to it, if Belushi went 78 on a bonsai run, he's not going to catch Ricky going 566. So, yes, we're talking parity. I can't agree with you, Carpenter, and say, well, let it run all year. Because I'm going to tell him, okay, park it. Now, here's where you get double negative. You take a guy like Sydney or you take Khaled and you go, like Sydney. Sydney's got, in my opinion, the best combination. He's got a Chevelle with a 50-pound weight brake sitting in Brazil. So everybody's like, well, why wouldn't you fly the car back here? Well, he's already in a bad situation, and now you're going to take 40 points away from him to pull out his other gun. Right? Because that's what's going on.
Well,
but that's
yeah,
but
Phil
that's
Schuler
happened.
just texted me and said that you can switch once and back with no penalty. So
no, it's when you go back, you get the penalty.
No matter. So if you go, so like if
no, maybe I'm wrong.
Is,
I'm not, and I just telling you that I watched Lonnie's deal last night on Stevie's show, and Lonnie said it's when you go back is when you get the 40 points, right?
So you
like,
can switch
once for Sydney or myself. We did the same thing. Hey, we're in Pro Charger cars. We kind of want to do something different. There's a bunch of other reasons. Let's build a screw car. So Sydney bought that car from my buddy up here in Mission. It was a Pro Charger car. Took the Pro Charger off, cut a hole in the hood with a skill saw, and look at him now. No, I'm not laughing at him. I feel for
it's
him.
crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, the situation is nauseating at the bare minimum.
Yeah,
you know,
and at the end of the day. And this is what I say to NH to Lonnie is just going, everybody should come here and have an equal opportunity to a degree to win. Right? Like, okay, if I tell you that I've got $25,000 shocks on my car and I've got multiple sets in the trailer and you're showing up with Conies from 1993 and you can't get down the track, well, that's on you.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Agreed. Agreed.
Because today they don't have a financial limit. They don't have a testing limit. They don't have, you know what I mean? Like, and until we get those types of rules, it is going to be a bit of a checkbook and the best tuner game. Like, that's the other thing that you see gone from Pro Mod is the two guys in the garage that worked all Monday to Friday. And then they went and worked on the shop till 11 o'clock at night. And then they, I don't know, called in sick and had a great job. And they used a holiday day on Friday. You don't see that right now, and especially at NHRA Pro Mod. We all have tuners that we got to pay.
I think that ship sailed, right? I mean, like, I don't know if there's any putting the rabbit back in the hat because, you know, to like talk positive, like to be excited. I mean, how much more does that make you excited about the fact that you've won the first two races of the season? Because we're not talking about Pro Mod of yesteryear. We're not talking about our parents' Pro Mod when it was a couple of guys getting together and I've got a chassis and you've got a motor. Let's go Pro Mod racing. Those days are so far gone. Does that make it all that more meaningful? I mean, like, this is a hell of a start to the season for you, dude.
Yeah.
As competitive as Pro Mod has been, win 2 in a row.
Right. But I mean, I'll tell you this. I think the saying goes something like every once in a while, a squirrel will find its nut, right? And at the end of the day, I think everybody gets a turn in this deal. I really do. And I just think right now is our turn. Am I going to get a third one? I don't know. Am I ever going to win another race? I don't know. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I never have ever pulled into the race track, drove through the gate and said, well, I'm just here to have fun. I show up to every race. I want to win. Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully
everybody's like that. Right.
Yeah. I've got 4 kids and I talk to them all the same. Tell them life's a competition and it doesn't reward second, doesn't reward third. Like, if you want to get with it, then get with it. And we've had to have conversations with our kids where one of them made the rep team and their friends didn't. And it's like, well, one day you're going to work in an office and they're going to ask you to move up one floor. And are you going to just say, well, I want to stay on this floor because this is where all my friends live and I don't want to make $20,000 more? Yeah. But as far as winning 2 races, I'm it's the people behind me, and I'm ecstatic about it. I'm not going to lie. I was shocked in Charlotte when I won because I shut it off early because the thing was spinning out. I was about to crash, and you can't see what's going on the 2 lanes over. So I'm thinking, well, how am I going to win when I just shut it off early?
How do you? Let's talk about 4-wide racing. I mean, because you're kind of bringing up some of the nuances or challenges of it. How do you feel about 4-wide? And because we wanted to have a discussion about that.
I think that I don't like 4-wide. Okay. It's not my favorite thing at all. And I just think that the simple answer about 4-wide is you're better to be lucky than you are to be good. Because you can sit here and tell me that you got all the strategies in the world and you're going to do all these things. I mean, you watched Sean Langdon a couple of weeks ago or whatever in Vegas. I mean, just you can be some sort of nutty professional psychologically. The 4-car things and the 4-stage lights. And when you're in those middle lanes that you got to look over here and then move your eyes to a different vertical position to see the row of bulbs. And there's just lots going on. And everybody gets on the power or on the throttle at different times, and that does affect you because you can hear people going on and off the gas and da 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 da. You know what I mean? Or the worst case scenario in 4 wide is that only 3 of the cars stage.
Yeah,
because then it's like, when do I get on the throttle? Because then you need to have the internal counter going from when the 5th bulb lit. Because when the 5th bulb lights, you got 7 seconds. And that's where I'm saying there's just lots to consider.
Yeah, we saw that with Manny. He had a staging thing, but then the Salinas in the Pro Stock bike deal, she basically caught the short end of the stick because she was paired up with a guy that didn't stage and got, completely lost in the process. Was something that I think was very understandable when you replay it and watch it. But it's
and you watch what happened.
We were having this argument about, is 4 wide. We always talk about how we talk about NASCAR going to different tracks. We talk about golf being played on different types of courses, and that 4 wide maybe is a little bit of drag racing, going to a road course or something like in NASCAR. And is it a good thing or a bad thing? And by and large, everyone hates it, but is it chaos? Is the chaos something that we need to embrace and just know that it's different and that the chaos is maybe what the fans are into? Or is it everybody needs the ship sailed?
Everybody needs to just go, you know what, we're doing it one time per year and it's the way it is. It's kind of like going over to your aunt's house and you got to eat her cabbage rolls and they're not very good. You just go there, you do it, and you find the best way to make the best of it. And this time it just happened to land in our lap. If you said to me, drag racing's 10 races a year 4 wide, I'm probably out.
Yeah,
I agree, man.
Would agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's universal. I mean, almost everybody, very polarizing thing. And I know there are people that are firm believers in it and like shortening the show and blah, 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 and adding, more excitement. But man, I just feel like drag racing loses all the. Drag racing is an intimate endeavor.
About the 4 wide on Sunday is because they had the rain delay. The 4 wide deal was over fast on Sunday because it
wasn't fast enough.
Yeah. But the show wasn't completely destroyed and you weren't there till midnight trying to get all the rounds of race again. It's over much quicker. So that's a good thing. But
I think we just look like a bunch of I don't like the end product. Like I just personally, my opinion is that it doesn't look when we can't do it effectively. I mean, we're diminishing our product, our on-track product. It's a calamity. There's hardly a round of racing that doesn't involve some sort of calamity, right? Like somebody rolling through the beams or getting timed out or whatever. And it's like, I think about it from the perspective of the fan. Man, I want to see these guys put their best foot forward. I don't want to put them in some jigsaw puzzle situation where I'm making something that's already difficult way more difficult than it normally is.
It looks cool when you're watching as a fan. I do think I've noticed this weekend, it's hard for them to really explain everything and go into depth when there's 4 cars out there because they can't explain everything.
Well, and the shot is, I noticed a couple times the shot is so
the next pairs or next quads coming up, so it's like, oh, what happened there? And they don't even show it long enough on the screen, like when whoever takes the win.
Well, they're like, they have to do such a wide angle, and they're like, watch what happens over here with this car, and they're like circling this little thing on the zoom right in here, and you'll see on this wide angle shot.
You're trying to look at the numbers, when they bring the numbers up and the win light, and you're going, wait, and then they take it off too quick. Yeah, it is. I mean, it needs work. I think
it is better in person. I will tell you that. There's no way to make it work on TV. And the fans,
not every race, but I think it's kind of cool just to switch it up.
But I mean, the time of year helps.
A spectacle in person, but on TV,
doing it early in the season, and I mean, like I'm with Justin. I'm completely cool with it. If they tried to make this a more commonplace deal, it happens at 2 tracks in the country. That's God's plenty. Let's not anybody else get any ideas, please. But yeah, if it was every weekend, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? And I saw a comment here that I want to touch base on is that I routinely say. That we are living in the golden era of drag racing. And I stand by that. I mean, what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the level that Pro Modified has reached is just that there are a lot of places to get in, right? There are places to go race where you can go build a car, in your garage and with your buddies and go race. It's just that NHRA Pro Mod specifically has reached a level of competition that it is far cry from the Pro Mod that we remember from the glory days, the 90s and the IHRA or Quick Eights on the East Coast. But there's still plenty of places to go race. And when I talk about this being a golden era for the sport of drag racing, I'm talking about the overall health and wellness of our sport. There are more people drag racing right now today than at any other point in the history of the world. And I mean, there are tracks around the country that are doing extremely well. For the handful that are folding or closing down, that's just life. That's just business. That's just the evolution of things. I mean, there are so many contributing factors, but by and large,
and it's not always because
the sport's
that track
doing
wasn't
really
money
well,
or that it wasn't well attended. You know, I mean, that's not always the reason why they have to close. You know, it could be that people are moving in the area and they're sick of fighting the battles with the city councils and whatnot. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
I mean, talk about that a little bit, Justin. I mean, how is the track doing up there in Mission? I mean, you were talking about you guys pulled back a little bit on the amount of dates that you run, across the board, not just talking about fast door slammer racing. Like, what's the racing scene like in BC right now?
I would say the car count is starting to grow. We're actually seeing it quite a bit in our junior program. Some of our other stuff is a little tough. You got to realize that we're 10 miles north of the Canada-US border, so a lot of our American customers, our American cars, have not been showing up. I hear on the 11th of May, the United States of America is going to drop the vaccine requirement, so like Canadians will start going south down to Seattle and stuff to race. And I feel this year it'll get better, but I think next year is when it'll really, like, the light bulb will have all full amperage and be as bright as it could be. I will say, like, yet again, I'm just on a panel there. I'm not a track operator by any means. I'm just on a guidance panel. I think up here operating a racetrack is kind of like being a farmer. In the older days, being a farmer, you had some land, you had some animals. Farming was just a thing you did. Now it's like, hey, this is a business and we actually need to figure out how to farm and farm more efficiently and get a better return on investment and do things leaner and meaner and bigger and better and tougher. And I think that's really what all tracks need to do. And that's especially what we're doing up here at Mission is we're doing way more things. We're doing drifting and road course and dirt bikes and all different stuff, and trying to do more big events and not, like, I'm a bracket racer. I love bracket racing. And I would say that we're not growing our bracket rate. Not that we're not growing bracket racing, is that we're trying to basically, like, fans don't like to come and see bracket racing because they don't understand it. You know who loves bracket racing is the actual bracket racer.
100%.
But the people that are, we just struggle to put fans. But I can tell you, like, our street legal class on a Friday night is our biggest turnout ever.
It's some of the biggest events that are happening in the country right now. I mean, you look at Cletus and Cars, Streetcar Takeover. Yeah. Holy moly, man.
Well, one of the most coolest drag races I was ever at, in West, you would have been there, was in Bandamere when they were running these vehicles backwards down the racetrack. I was like, what the hell is this? Yeah. And you got some guy in this jacked up Dodge Cummins and he's going backwards 30, 40 mile an hour and he's doing the whoopity whoopity and you're thinking, when's he going in the wall, right?
Yeah, that one guy had like a $150,000 Raptor. Crazy, right?
There's a lot of ways to get into it. I mean, and that's the exciting thing for me. I had a conversation with some guys at the NHRA at ZMAX, and that's what they were. It felt like that was a high priority item for the NHRA moving forward, is like, hey, we've got to get aggressive with this street legal entry level deal where you and remind people that you don't have to, because the barrier to entry for drag racing, even at a fairly low level, it's up there, right? I mean, you're got to buy a race car, a truck, a trailer, a tool. I mean, it's a big bite, and trying to remind people that you can take your daily driver, your minivan, and go compete in a drag race. Now, are you going to have the same thrill as driving Justin's Pro Mod car? Obviously not. But you also don't have near the investment, near the risk. You can go compete in drag racing, and that's the magic of our sport, is you can drive your car directly off the street and onto the competition surface, and that's unheard of. And we don't probably talk about that enough. And that's why I'm glad to see, like, some of these streetcar events. Streetcar Takeover right now, I can't say enough about that particular event series. They do 15, 16 races a year. They've got dyno day, roll racing, drag racing, and you go to one of those deals and you're like, I didn't know there were this many twin turbo Corvettes and Camaros and Mustangs on the planet, let alone all here in Charlotte or all here in Bradenton or wherever they go. They go to like I said, over a dozen tracks a year. So I feel like car culture. What's your take on car culture as a whole? Being like an international, based out of Canada, you come to the States all the time. I mean, are you still surprised by the number of hot rodders and gearheads that exist in the world? Do you think Street Outlaws and all that has contributed to that? The increasing popularity of being a car guy?
Yeah, I think it's coming around. I think the whole like it's cool if like IT and .com, like the .com era, I think is come and gone. I think having some sort of motorized something that's cool is cool. I see it in my own kids. I think that the whole EV movement is another thing that's coming. Like I think that there's the EV classes are coming down the line. I think that the whole controllers for the EV is the new thing coming. I do want to say something that you won't get the rush like I get out of driving a Pro Mod, and I'll tell you the secret to it is never drive something that you can't afford, because you can't go backwards in drag racing. So if you can afford to run in Sportsman, don't ever drive your buddy's pro car. What I mean by pro is like a bottom bulb car that goes 10 seconds, because you'll never want to drive your Sportsman again. Right. So the secret to it is just know your limit and play within it. If all you can handle is a 10-second car, just stay there, and because you don't know any better, and you get the same rush I get. But if I went and drove a fuel funny car, I probably couldn't get back in a Pro Mod.
It's so true. And I mean, and I've seen that, like, that's one of my big concerns about ADRL Pro Extreme is like, we get all these guys routinely running 340s and like 350s. It's going to be hard to get him excited about running 370, right? I mean, I ran into that with Frankie the Madman Taylor. Frankie Taylor wore me out over the rules at the World Series because he just wanted it to be run what you brung. No rules, run what you brung, hope you brung enough. And I'm like, dude,
we ain't done that.
You can't do that. Like, it'll eat itself alive in one weekend. I mean, we had 61 cars on the property. You look at the next no rules race, let me know how many show up, because it's not, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to put it, it's not a sustainable model, in my opinion.
No, it's like I said to you, we have, all as a group, we have to evolve. And part of evolution is, we shave now, and we didn't years ago, and we use utensils to eat. We never used to.
Some of us do.
Yeah.
Mike doesn't even have to shave.
No, I don't. Just
he can't even grow a beard
once a month.
He just gets some cream and calls his cat over, and away it goes.
I'm kidding.
100%, man.
Hey, we're
100%.
talking about Canada a lot. What's up with the Canadians just wrecking shop in Dorsalamer classes so far this year? You got 2 wins in NHRA Pro Mod. Spencer Hyde won the World Series of Pro Mod. Man, what's going on up there north of the border?
It's in the maple syrup. That's all I can tell you.
It feels that way, man.
I was thinking about this the other day. What's the when you win here, is it taxed then in the US? And then like,
dude, everything's taxed. We don't race for money. Okay. We race for the trophy.
The same. Well, I was Taylor Gooch that won the Live golf tournament in Australia. Like, they hit him with a 48% or something tax.
Yeah. So
it
doesn't, the way taxation kind of works is like whatever you pay in that, like basically where the money ends up last is where you have to make sure the tax is paid. So if I got taxed in America at say 21%, Canada has a 47% tax rate. So if I pay 21% in your country, I'm going to pay the rest here. That's how it works. Okay. You don't really get double taxed. You're just going to pay the tax at the end country.
So you're paying 26% when you get home. Right.
No, for sure. I don't know what the tax rate is in America, and like I'll tell you right now, I don't. And this isn't because of like I'm independently wealthy, because I'm really not. I mean, I'm at work. If I was independently wealthy, I wouldn't work. I just don't do it. Like, we get paid $10,000 to win an NHRA Pro Mod race, and I'm not turning my nose up at it. That's lots of money. But I mean, you still leave about 25 or 30 in the hole, right?
Right.
But that's where the sponsors come in, and we couldn't be doing any of this without the sponsors.
Hi, Blake.
Hey, Blake. Blake, what do you got, Bob?
Really quick, I hate to interrupt. This is a really great conversation, but we actually have some exciting news here on the show really quick. We are going to do a giveaway, so Wes, do you want to quick jump into
Yeah,
that?
yeah, my
Talk
bad.
about what we're
So-
giving away and who we're giving away to?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. I would have forgotten otherwise. So basically, we pride ourselves here at Drag Illustrated in being conversation starters, and that's what this show's really been about since day one, is not solving all the world's problems, certainly not solving all the world of drag racing's problems, but at least starting these conversations and hopefully keeping them going so that ultimately someday, some point in the future, we can feel like we've made some progress. And we always want to feel here at DI like we contributed to that conversation, if not started it all together. So we want to put the onus on you guys a little bit. Every week on the show, we get incredible commentary from those of you watching along and being a part of this conversation. So challenge is throw a conversation starter, throw a question, throw something in the comments. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the show, rather, we will pick one of those comments. We'll obviously pick one quickly and we'll start talking about it, but we will pick the best one and we will give brand new Lincoln Electric welding mask. We've got a Lincoln Electric Viking 2450 ADV series. It's their upgraded, newest, lightweight premium helmet. Offers an excellent blend of optics, comfort, and versatility with new technologies to improve productivity. Anyways, you throw out a killer question, a killer comment. We will obviously riff on it here as part of the show, but then we will mail you a brand new welding helmet courtesy
Wes,
of our
what
friends.
do you use to make your hair look so good?
That's a horrible question.
It's not
whale jizz.
Man.
That's a horrible question.
I was going to win something.
It's tired. The hair comments are tired.
No, I
Like-
said I was complimenting it. I was
Whatever.
trying to win.
JT, you want to know what it is?
Oh,
What?
God.
It's that stuff, when you go to the tire shop and you see that ugly old paintbrush.
That's the stuff.
Yeah. That shit right there.
That's
Yeah.
the stuff. I mean, I'm going to go to Buck Brothers. I'm going to fly back up to Missouri, go to Buck Brothers, run over. Man,
It
I
just
actually
slings
miss
everywhere
changing
when they
tires.
do it,
It
you
goes
know? Yeah.
everywhere. Total disaster. The shit's all over the place. So anyways, best question. We'll get a brand new welding mask courtesy of our friends at Lincoln Electric, Lon and the gang. So anyways, throw one in here.
Here's a
and
good
it'll
one.
be a big
Here's a good one.
All right.
Justin, what's more fun to drive? Turbo, screw, or Pro Charger?
Oh, man.
I like that one.
Honestly, I'm going to tell you probably turbo. Screws a very close second. Pro Charger's in the third.
Why is that?
when you're in that turbo car and it clicks into high gear, like it pulls more G at the finish line than it does at the starting line, and the doors start flapping like a bird, and you're like, "Oh shit, we're about to take off." Yeah, where the screw car, it's like ignorant from pretty much belly button to butthole. But
violent.
the Pro Charger, the Pro Charger car, it's like being on a bull. I mean, it comes out of the chute real angry, but it's a small bull because it gets out there at about half track and calms down. But yeah.
That's good.
So
Do you think there's ever a day that we'll see? Because I hear that like everybody that
I
I've
wanna
ever talked
build-
to
I
about
wanna
turbo
build my-
cars want a
I
turbo
wanna-
car.
I want to build myself a Chevelle, get my 50-pound weight brake, and put a couple of hair dryers on there and get her done. But it's the 40-pound rule deal. You know what I mean? So it might have to wait till next year, and somebody will probably beat me to that idea. But I totally think that right now, these cars are so heavy that if you could do anything to get rid of weight, the aero won't matter.
Yeah.
So I think like,
Let's hope.
like I said,
Somebody try
Sydney could go into that Chevelle Pro Charger car. I think he would do well, but it's the 40 pounds. And I think if you put turbos on it, I think what we're seeing is like when they back the rules down so much to get you attracted back, like look at Ricky, 566, boom, laid the dong out there. Right? So
Do you think that the days of nitrous racing are just over? Like, or at least in NHRA Pro Mod? Like,
no,
because that was a pretty impressive.
The man Jim Halsey sent me a text message saying, "Congratulations," and I said, "Jim, I need you to come over here and show us what we cannot do." And he says, "Well, we're talking about it."
Mm.
So I'm egging him on right now. Come on, Jimmy, get out here.
That would be, and I think that the NHRA.
You're gonna need bigger parachutes, though, bro, because you're gonna be hauling ass. Yeah.
I mean, that 252, 566, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, was anybody in the Pro Mod scene like surprised by that run, or did everybody think that was possible?
No, I think we all know it. I think like talking for myself, I know that it's there. My issue is that I don't know anything about it. And compressed, like I'm a welder, compressed bottles in my race car, I don't know, it just scares me. And the whole hood scoop thing and the firewall and the windshield blown up, I don't know. It just, ever since I watched that Dan Stevenson car burn to the ground that time in Florida, I've always been a little scared of it.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
Understandably, that was a sketchy deal. What do you make of speaking of like safety and stuff, the Pro Charger situation that they had with Marcus Burt, where it would appear that thing exploded? I mean, what's your take on the Pro Charger deal, or what exactly happened there?
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot smarter people that probably have this land on their toes as far as responsibility. Am I scared of it? No. Do I think that it's a problem potentially? Is it the Pro Charger itself? I don't know. Is it something bolted to the Pro Charger? Is it the hard cut rev limiter that they make us have? Is it pedaling the car and shaking? I mean, I don't have the answer. I don't know. One thing I am very certain on is whatever their decision will be, it will be imposed on me. So it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. I've been doing this long enough now to know that I don't want to use the word victim. I'm just going to be the victim though. Like it'll be put this shield on or cross drill this bolt hole, or you can't run it until we figure it out. Well, I hope that's not the answer, but I mean, I don't have an answer. I don't know what happened. All I know is that when that happened, we went over, I build them a couple of lines and we do anything to keep all of our competitors. And I mean, that's one of the things on my list that I want to talk about is, yeah, I've won 2 races, but at the end of the day, if I don't have anybody to compete against, winning is irrelevant. And winning when there's 10 cars there isn't winning. And I just want to thank all the guys that are, and gals, but we only have guys right now that are coming out and spending the money and putting their ass in the seat and tightening the seat belts and opening the CO2 bottle. I want to thank them all and tell them it's a crew that I have major respect for. And I wouldn't be winning if they weren't there.
Yeah.
And I literally just think that it's my turn right now. I don't think I'm better than them at all. I think that we're all good in our own way and we're all going to have our chance.
And you guys got 21 cars on the list for Chicago, man. I mean, you got to feel good about that. I mean, it's like
I'm hoping that we have 32 at Indy. I'm hoping that we got to go to NHRA and say, hey, you got to open up. You got to relax the strings a little bit because every Tom, Dick, and Harry are coming out.
I hope so too, man. Well, hey, let's wrap up with a couple of things and we'll dive into some Q&A. Go ahead.
Like, is any suggestions on how to get the fans more involved in pro mod, like chip draws every round or call outs? Do you ever see anything like that happen where the NHRA would ever do anything like that?
No, we can't do that because it's a points deal and you know, chip draws and all that kind of stuff. That's cool if you're doing the Cowboy one-off deal and it makes it fun. And I mean, going back to it, so I don't have the data in front of me, but I'm going to say we went from a 566 to I don't know, I'm picking a number out of my ass, a 77 or an 80. What was the bump?
The bump was a 84 with a 6.
Okay, so an 84. So let's just say we had 2/10. The chip draw doesn't work at 2/10. What did you have at your race, Wes? 400s?
600s.
Right. So that's where the chip draw is like really, I'm scared of everybody. Like, I don't want to line up against nobody. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. I don't think it works over there. I mean, and I feel like you guys, I was really excited. There was something that happened, I think, on Saturday morning where the NHRA or, you know, the Fast Lane consultants, whatever, there was a group effort to organize an autograph session. Holy shit, man. I mean, it was like massively well attended. Were you surprised? I mean, there was like a long line of people there. Like,
yeah,
now I know we're in pro mod country, but holy shit.
Yeah, I was, I mean, they were like, hey, you got to bring your hero cards. And I was like, gosh, I was about to use those as start of campfire. But anyway, so we brought those, but there's so much ink on them, they don't burn very good. But anyways, so we brought them over there and I don't know the exact number, but there was a lot. Like I remember just pre-signing piles of them and, you know, thanking them all for coming. And honestly, it's cool. And the amount of emails and texts and Facebook messages and stuff that we're getting now. I mean, people always want to hang out with the winning racehorse, right? And this was my deal from when I bracket raced. I probably went through 10 cars in the first 2 years because I was pretty good when I started. So I would like win the race and be idling back and pulling my pit, and there'd be somebody standing there and be like, so how much to own this car? Like people want to buy winning racehorses. And feeling that again right now, but I know it won't last forever, and I'm going to enjoy it while I can. But like I said, it's just our turn right now. We've put in the time. It's our turn.
Talk about real quick before we let you go, racing with Brad Personette, man. I'm a big Brad Personette guy. He's been on the cover of Drag Illustrated. He's a guy, and that was a long time ago, incredibly, when he was racing twin turbo Hemi with a clutch. And I've just been him, his dad, Mike. It's an incredible group. And it's awesome to see him out here still having like such tremendous success and being like he's really established himself as like a real deal crew chief tuner.
Well, but he's an OG. I think that's the thing about Brad that I like the most is that he's an OG. He doesn't, dude, he cuts his hair himself. Okay. He's a badass.
That's hardcore.
No, but he's badass. And you know what? We race as a family. He was there with his wife, his 2 kids. My deal is I want to put as much candy and sugar in those kids as I can. And I got to give Tina as much shit as I can because, Brad's pretty, an even guy. So she needs a little, shit in her life sometimes. And I'm happy to give it to her. Brad's, I wouldn't race if Brad wasn't tuning my car, if he wasn't backing me up, if he wasn't telling me that it's okay. Like I knew when those raindrops were falling on Sunday and I was like, well, if it was bad, Brad wouldn't let me go. Because originally when I backed up and I started going forward, I seen shit on the windshield. I was like, maybe I got a fuel line lease. But there was a track official walk in front of my car and there was nothing on the ground because they would have shut me off. And I was like, well, Brad wouldn't let me stage if it was too dangerous. And then we went on down through there and he was like, well, it didn't look too good at the other end, but we got her done. So, yeah, like I wouldn't do it without him. He's big part of our success. It's the whole crew. And I said this in the media room that night. I truly have the best crew, and that's, we didn't make a lot of changes and most of our people are still there, but the attitude has changed to where they want to win more than I want to win. They're going to go to the track Sunday morning at 7:30 or 8 o'clock and take apart a perfectly good number 2 qualifying race car and check everything and nut and bolt it. And you know what? We're just going to take that torque converter apart to make sure this is good, or we're going to take this exhaust apart. We're going to do all these things to make sure it's right. And so it gives you the liberty of just focusing on driving the car and not wondering what's going to fall off.
And you demonstrated that. Like I was really like the way you ramped up throughout the day, especially going 018 in the final in a 4-wide race. It was cool to watch your progression throughout the day. Like you started with obviously a good racehorse, so I'm sure you were obviously confident in round 1, but you normally throw all the reaction times out the window at a 4-wide. But dude, be yourself. JR Gray was 005. Ricky Smith was 034. Jason Lee 001 red, close. That was a hell of a drag race, at least off the starting line, right?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't like, hey man, this is world domination. This is I just luck landed in my lap. Every car that went into the starting line on round 3, which is because that's how it goes with the quads. Every one of those guys could have won. Every one of them. They're all badass people. They're all good drivers.
Who's your favorite guy to beat at the track?
JR Gray.
JR's on a lot of lists, man.
He doesn't talk any trash or anything.
Nah.
Oh no, what's another time? We'll have a conversation another day. I got to wrap this up. So I got a couple things.
Thank you so much, buddy. Yeah.
But hold on, a couple things.
Yeah,
so number 1 is, have you ever had a secret admirer, Wes?
Uh-oh. Not that I'm aware of.
Going?
Okay, so I got this young lady that works for me, and I'm just letting you know that you got a secret admirer up here in Mission, British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, she's probably downstairs pissing her pants right now, and I'm hoping her husband's not watching because he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. And I got a whole list of people that I need to thank before I get off.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Go for it.
The floor is yours.
So of course I want to thank JBS Equipment, my company, and all the people that work here. Total Dairy Solutions, TD Steel, GNS Freight, NGK Spark Plugs, Rad Torque Systems, Reliable Tube, and Spartan Metal, Impact Racing, my homeboy Shane, S&T Truck Repairs, my buddy Derek at Titanium Auto Group, EPI, Postma Farms, Dynamic Tire and Wheel, Mac Chain, New Line Hose and Fittings, Eaton Hydraulics, Dan Fost, Applied Industrial Technologies, Wajack, and of course, Sheik Abdullah, he's the man, and everybody at Balrain One Racing and Khalil back at the shop, NBB, Babco, Alba, Batelco, my homeboy, Khaled Al-Balushi at RSG, and the Balrain International Circuit. They treated me like a god when I was over there this winter. Adol and Sheik Salmon were the best, and I'd like to ask you guys all to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
You got it, big dog. And hey, man, congratulations, dude. Like
Yep.
you've been, I tell this story a lot. During COVID, all the stuff that was going on, you know, the world's upside down and on fire. And I'll never forget, because I was pulling out of a pizza place. I was picking up food for my kids, and my phone rings and it's Justin Bond. And I normally I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna be mad at me about something. I'm about to get my ass ate or something. I answer it, and you literally said to me like, hey man, you good? I know, you know, it's rough and business is rough everywhere. You good? I don't, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm good. Why? And you're like, well, I don't want to bail you out, but if I have to, I will. And that was your exact words. Yeah, I don't want to bail you out, but if I have to, I will. And I tell that story about you a lot. Anytime anybody asks me about the kind of guy you are or what you're like, because you are intimidating. You always look mad. And but that's the first story I tell. I said, hey man, this dude called me out of the clear blue, has no reason to be nice to me. Yeah, we race together or whatever, you know, it's fun and we see each other a little bit, but I mean, it's not like we're spending every weekend together, but you call me out of the clear blue to make sure my family's good, my business is good, and I'll never forget it, man. So get back to work. I know you're hungry, your stomach's growling, but you're a good dude, man, and I'm happy to see you have all the success. And I hope we should go to Bahrain. Those guys hit me up to come over there. We'll go maybe together.
I'm definitely going. I'm shipping a car after Indy, and I'm definitely going to run there this winter. Like I said, it's one of it's the nicest facility I've ever been to, and the people are second to none, and they just treat you like you're your own. And I don't know, I can't say no. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to have a great time, and we're going to test all winter long, and then we're going to come back next year and just keep rolling. I mean, we have big plans, and the plans aren't to hang up the driving shoes anytime soon. The 40-point deal kind of sucks. So, you know,
but everything else is good.
Yeah. We might just have to go run some other places, because what else are you going to do? Right.
Yeah. What do you do, man? Well, keep us posted on the Turbo Chevelle. I'm excited. Yeah. Thanks for everything, man. Tell the girl downstairs hello, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'm sure she'll be Facebooking you right now, you know, like some hearts and shit. And,
let's hope not. I don't need that in my life. All right, buddy.
I know.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay. Take care, buddy.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Justin.
Bye-bye.
Oh my goodness, we hit you up for Santa Pod all the time. I'm over, man. I'm ready. So
we
VWDRC we tried to go to Santa Pod last June with Freddie Terza from VP Racing Fuels, or was it September? I think it might have been September.
Yeah, we had too much going on.
Yeah, we had too much going on, but I'd really like to do that, because you know I threw some reach outs around because I wanted to get some.
Yeah, what did it say? The Fuelers Bar.
Fuelers Bar.
Oh boy.
I'm in.
JT's like, you're feeling the pull of a magnet. You're like, yeah, it's pulling you over, man. So, hey, we got a few minutes left here. We'll talk for another 15, 20 or so. If you guys have, first off, shout out to Justin Bond. Thanks for the time, the candid conversation.
Man, he's a trip.
He's
really
got
is the analogies on lock.
He really does.
Those are some good ones. My favorite was, he said, what is it? Illegitimately operated race cars. that sounds like NASA explaining an explosion, saying rapid unscheduled disassembly. Shit blew up. That car was cheating. No, we call it what did he say? Illegitimately operated. That's
illegitimately operated race cars. And then but he had some great ones, like talking about, you know, putting the chain on the gate a little more often. I think there's some real truth to that, you know, and we see it in other sports where there's just so much, you know, you can't hardly keep up with it. I mean, and we find ourselves in that. Drag Illustrated covered 100 individual races in 2022. Last year, we sent people to 100 different races. And I looked at the schedule for this year, and it's like, man, there's even more stuff for us to go to and stuff for us to cover. And it's fantastic. But man, there is a point where I think it almost gets a touch watered down. You know, I don't know that we're at a point right now where the sport needs a gazillion more door slammer races.
You know, it'd be interesting. We talk about that with where we were this past weekend at ZMAX, where that place, I'm pretty sure that they only open the gates at that place for the 2 national events, Streetcar Takeover, and maybe a handful of other events at most for the rest of the year. And we talk about, why does this place have a weekly bracket program? Why doesn't it do this? Why does it do that? And I wonder if it's, that same reasoning behind what Justin was saying.
Might be.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's just so expensive to operate that place. We
Yeah, that
know
place
that,
is
but
so
even,
big.
even your smaller track, it's something we don't think about. We just always think more racing, more tracks, the more, the better, but you can definitely oversaturate it.
I think right now the key to success at a racetrack or drag strip specifically is operating as a multi-purpose facility, like being willing to do like Keith Haney, build a mud bog pit or whatever, throw a country music festival. We see that at the Texas Motorplex here. They kind of defy what the rule I'm about to say of having a place that's reasonably inexpensive to operate. Because that's what I see across the board is the tracks that are like really rocking and rolling, kicking ass and taking names. They're kind of like the Saturday night drag strips that are a little bit smaller. Maybe they can't handle 30, 40,000 people, but they can handle 3,500 or 5,000, and they can get a good crowd routinely. They can keep the lights on. I mean, I really feel sometimes you got to know your audience, know who you are, kind of know your place in the world. And I think drag racing at times, like maybe we've gotten, some of these super tracks, like they're so badass and they're so fantastic, but like, let's think about the fact that Route 66 Raceway is opening up for the first time in however long, in a couple of weeks to bring back the NHRA, but they have no staff there. This is an interesting thing. The NHRA will be operating that entirely on their own. Every single thing, no people that work at Route 66 Raceway will be there. Zero. I mean, maybe like 2, but like they're unlocking the place. They're unlocking the door and letting NHRA take over. And I don't know, man. I do think that stuff, you get these huge stadium style venues, and as cool as they are to visit, it's hard to keep them open. If I'm building a racetrack in 2023 or 4, I'm building Byron Dragway.
But are you even building a drag strip? That's the thing. I think that's what Justin was saying with being a farmer, where it's like, you used to just, if you had a bunch of land, you farmed it, and that was what you did with it. Now, and the same thing with drag racing, where you had a big plot of land, you built a drag strip, built a racetrack. Now it's like, hey, we could build 1,000 houses on this land, or a warehouse, Amazon warehouse. So that's what we're seeing a lot of, companies using it for different purposes other than recreational stuff.
But I do think that there are track operators doing well out there. I just don't think those stories are told often enough, because it's just classic drag racing. I mean, maybe we should accept this challenge ourselves, is because the good stories, and this is something we've done on the pages of DI for 20 years now, is it's like we could fill the pages of that magazine up with sensational, headlines about cheating or rule controversies or this bad news, that bad news. We choose not to. We choose for that magazine to be to serve as a source of positivity for the sport of drag racing. And we take a deep dive and examine some tough conversations and tough topics here on this show. But again, there is a lot of really good things happening in the sport of drag racing. A lot of
people don't want to talk about it though, because in this sport, it's just crazy. Of all the sports out there, in this sport, people will like get mad or talk bad about him if they knew they were making. You know how much money he made last weekend off us? And let's not even say that he made that great of money. Let's just say he just, and then he put in a lot of work and made some money, and everybody's mad. Like, well, you should have gave it all back to the racers.
It's so tough, man. I mean, and I would love to have that conversation, or have someone like grill me or grill us on, just because it takes a ton, man. It just takes so much to pull off one of these deals. And when I see, I'm excited for other people's success. I'm excited to see these deals pop off and see the place packed out. Like when the NHRA sold out Gainesville, sold out Charlotte, sold out Phoenix. I'm going, bravo, because we need that type. But I also recognize that
you're invested too, though. I mean, but you've invested, and let's say the weather goes bad, and you just get annihilated, financially.
Everybody looks at the numbers.
You don't see anybody say anything then.
Yeah, everybody looks at what they can count the money coming in. A lot of times they don't know how much is going out. I think that applies to things we've done and a lot of these guys. But it is a weird thing, JT. I think you see that in this arena more than a lot of others. It's just like accepted, like the NFL. How much these guys are getting paid, these contracts, and it's just like everyone knows what everyone else is making, and there's no secret. But in this sport and in a lot of things, you're not supposed to talk about it. You're not supposed to be making any money. It's the good old fight. I'm just out here, for the passion and loving it, and I'm giving it my all. But I mean, you got to eat.
Yeah,
too.
Lord forbid somebody makes a living off of it. Right? Yeah.
No, 100%. And there's gotta be something in it for these guys that are sticking their neck out there. And it's true. I mean, the first conversation we had in the wake of the World Series of Pro Mod is, it's like, as great as everything went, and as, knock on wood, everything went really well. It's like, what if we get the whole deal rained out next year? Right? What if there's a tropical storm? You just never know. And you have to be preparing for those type of things, expect the best, hope for the best, but plan for the worst, plan for things to go awry. So it's a really interesting thing, man. It really is. So anyways, here, let's pick a question. Like, we've had some barn burner comments. I think my favorite one so far was, what's Justin Bond's favorite car to drive? Turbo, screw blower, roots, etc. But I am curious. Let's get a couple of more questions and give a Lincoln Electric welding mask to somebody, guys. We'll have JT. I'll let you pick the best question. You see anything?
Well, somebody was asking,
did you guys lose money on the World Series of Pro Mod? What's it say?
Yeah. Did you guys
lose money
on the World Series of Pro Mod?
We did not.
Or do you put a budget to it and for what all you can do? So yeah.
So we always build a budget. Like, the way we do it is, and I'm pretty open book about this stuff, probably too much, but my advice to anybody that wanted to start a race or put on a race would be to build a budget. And I'm not a budget guy. Like, I'm everybody on this, everybody that I'm looking at right now, Mike and JT know that. God knows everybody at Drag Illustrated knows that I'm not a big budget guy or a big crazy planning guy. But one thing I am is a big integrity guy, and it's easy for these things to get out of control in a hurry. And it's easy to get, I always say that you need to, there's seasons in life, right? It's like a roller coaster ride, and you don't want to do your budgeting like on the ride up. You know what I mean? Where you're like all excited and you're getting ready to go over the hill and everything looks really good. You want to do that like when you're waiting in the long ass line, right. When it's not exciting, not fun. Do your budgeting then. So basically, typically what we do is we roll in, and first things first, the first order of business for us at Drag Illustrated when we put on an event is to make sure the racers get paid, right? So you decide what your purse is. You put all these things on a spreadsheet. That's what we do, one after another. And you've got to factor in everything from your winner's purse to, your number one qualifying effort, your round money, whatever that's going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you got to do that across the board. And we don't like to roll through the gates of any event. We will not. Like, matter of fact, we would not ever do that. We roll into the gates. When we roll through the gates, everything is covered. So we're not going to let it be hopeful that we're able to cover the purse. Like, that is dangerous territory. And we've seen that go awry on a number of different occasions, but it's also hard to do. And you're reliant on entry fees. You're reliant on sponsorship partners. You're reliant on so many things. But in my opinion, that is the most important thing in the world, is that nothing will put your deal in the ditch quicker than a racer not getting paid what he was told he was going to get paid, or making changes to that payout in the days or leading up to, the weeks leading up to, or the day of. That is a fucking death sentence.
And it's easy to try to give all the money back, because you want to see these guys win big purses. You want to see the event big. And I think this last time we did pretty good at trying to do both,
Yeah, and here's the thing is, it's an expense, and the thing that you forget is that everything costs money. We didn't talk about the World Series of Pro Mod television show. That is a bought and paid for deal. You know what I'm saying? Everything costs money. You want to have a big ass sound system on the starting line? It's an invoice. I actually told Kayla Zadell when she was interviewing me for the upcoming issue of Drag Illustrated with Spencer Hyde on the cover, our World Series of Pro Mod souvenir issue. She asked me, what was it like initially? And it was, you know, the months leading up to the race are kind of rough because almost every conversation is a purchase order or an invoice. You know, it's like every single day, it's like, okay, what does this cost? What does that cost? How much is this going to cost? And you get blown away by the price of stuff because, I mean, if people knew how much it costs to have deputy sheriffs on the property.
Yeah, that
was the biggest sticker shock I had at the World Series of Pro Mod was what it costs to have deputy sheriffs there, because it blew my mind. JT, you used to be a deputy sheriff, so it would have been cool if you would have like filled me in on that.
I had a badge and gun. I mean, we
could have saved a hell of a lot of money.
We could have saved a hell, but that one, I mean, bro, that really shocked me. But you know, you look around at these events, but like my belief system on that is big events have cops at them. You know what I mean? Like if you go to any big event, I mean, freaking, I don't know, a 5K has cops at it. You know, so you've got to we had to have cops. So it was like even if we didn't have a big crowd, which, you know, knock on wood and thank the good Lord, we did have a big crowd. We had to have cops there. You just need police. You have to have police.
Yeah, Scott Palmer has an important
I wasn't done with my financial breakdown, bro.
Well, man, we run way too long.
Okay.
Will there be any clutch cars invited next year to the World Series of Pro Mod, even though they're slow?
100%. The way I'm looking at the World Series of Pro Mod invites is, for the most part, there is an exception, but the people that support me are going to be the people who I want to be there. Like once you've been a part of the World Series of Pro Mod, once you've been on that driver roster, you've got a place there as long as you want it. You know, that's how I see this deal evolving, is that we want room for new blood and we want there to be room for some new faces and some new people to move into the spotlight. But I want to develop these characters, and it's going to take time to develop them. Right. So like I need the same cast of character. You wouldn't do Oceans 1 and 2 with completely different casts, right? No, you would use most the same people and a few fresh faces. So like,
they try that and it's always a flop.
Yeah. Right. It's a flop. So I mean, like Oceans 11, Oceans 12 or whatever, those have to be like, I want this, for the most part, I want the same guys there. So Scott Palmer here.
He's developed. We don't
first
need
guy
character anymore.
Let's ask if he's coming. Scott Palmer, will you accept an invitation to the World Series of Pro Mod 2024? Let's put him on the
He's coming. Kayla wants to know, where can you get these sweet ass Racers Club t-shirts? JT would like to know that too.
Yeah, JT would like to know. They're on their way to you in the mail. We got some big news coming about Racers Club next week, so stay tuned because we got the next thing in drag racing coming down the pipeline here in the coming days.
Right here, Tommy Hot Rod Payne. Will you be a big dog? That's a yes. I'll be there.
The weather must be just perfect.
It's going to be 71.
It's going to be perfect.
Partly cloudy.
Low humidity.
Hell yeah.
0% chance of rain.
Yep. You nailed it, man. That's exactly what it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking here. Mama Sue, such a sweetheart. World Series of Pro Mod was the coolest event. We had a blast. Qualifying was a win for us. Hey, thanks, man. I mean, and that's the type of environment that we wanted. We wanted it to be a deal where if you qualified, you felt like you won. If you accepted an invitation, you felt like you won. And I stand by it. I feel that there is a large majority of the people that accepted an invitation to the World Series of Pro Mod got more publicity, spent more time in the spotlight, were talked about more by simply accepting that invitation than anything else that they will do in drag racing. And that is our goal. We want every single one of our drivers to be put on a pedestal. And we, like I said, I think we created, what did I say, guys? Just shy of 500 individual pieces of content in the 3 months leading up to the World Series of Pro Mod. That's 500 stories, web graphics, social media posts, videos, 500 pieces of content in the lead up to the World Series of Pro Mod, and God knows how much since then. So, anyways, but that's
can you run 500,000 at World Series of Pro Mod?
If you put up 400, we'll put up 100.
Well, hey, dude, no. I can make it less than that. So yes. So Scott Palmer's in. Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, 1,000%. He said, yeah.
All right. So Scott Palmer, thank you. Scott's my dog. That we go way back. I tell Scott Palmer stories like every time I go to the racetrack. This dude let me whack the throttle in his top fuel car last year at Indy. I'd like to do that again, but hold the damn thing down
to be there
a little while. I'm gonna get
He's got some stuff going on. I talked to Scott this past weekend, and Jimmy Dale. Jimmy Dale was at ZMAX.
Oh yeah, we got a whole lot of
damn
stuff to talk about.
Had
Tom
a damn
Gunner
autograph line wrapped around the pits. Man, it was crazy.
Jimmy Dale's a superstar in the making. I can tell you right now. J.R. Gray asking if we can run for 500,000 at the World Series of Pro Mod. Yes, we can, and we're not the equation's not that complicated. So whatever you guys want to run for, my goal, I mean, I'll just throw it out here because I guess whatever. That deal will be for $1 million at some point in the near future. Like that's the goal. You have to start somewhere, but my goal is to slowly escalate sustainably and get us to a point where the World Series of Pro Mod is $1 million drag race. That's my goal. So $500,000 will have to happen on the way to $1 million. So let's talk about that. Hey, Larry Jeffers in the house. What's up, Larry? Thanks for everything you do for the sport. Thank you, man. We appreciate it a bunch. The new owner of the IHRA, the International Hot Rod Association, making a big push back into the sportsman racing world, putting on a bunch of races. Hopefully we're going to do some stuff together this season. Will any of you guys, we'll have at least one guy at the throwdown at T-Town, Cody Driver. What do we think about the Midwest Drag Racing Series? I think the Midwest Drag Racing Series is fantastic. We had Keith Haney in the comments here earlier, and I think Keith, and I say this all the time, and people need to hear this, businesses are built on the back of solving a problem. And there was a problem in the Midwest. I mean, as someone who grew up in the Midwest and raced in the Midwest, he solved the problem in that he provided a world-class place to race for racers in the middle of our country. And as big of fans as we are of the PDRA, I mean, I don't know that there are any bigger fans of the Professional Drag Racing Association than like the people on the screen right now and all of us at Drag Illustrated. We've got a long-standing relationship with them that spans 10 years. But it is out east, right? I mean, it's an East Coast series, and it's a big challenge. I mean, I think about my dad who, tried to run PDRA Extreme Pro Stock last year, but the big challenge for him, being a business owner, not being a full-time racer, that was a big bite to go out east every weekend and go to VMP or go to wherever, go to, not Maple Grove, Maryland International Raceway. That's a tough deal. So what Keith Haney did is he solved the problem for the people in middle America that want to run for good money at good tracks in front of a crowd, and be part of a well-organized event, compete for points. While I do stand by my statement that I think we're in the era of the big independent event, I think that that's the big needle movers right now. There is no doubt that there's an entire world of people that want to chase points, that want to continue, want to go out and compete against the best in their given place. And I think the Midwest Drag Racing Series has provided a great place for that. So I've been to half dozen of their races over the years, and they've got a great thing going.
All right, let's pick a winner.
I want to send it to J.R. Gray for the $500,000 comment.
I'm gonna do too.
But what's JR gonna do with the welding helmet?
Yeah, he's
JR, you can just give me the helmet.
Let's scroll up through here. Well, Bruce Barth asked, how did you decide what other classes to have at the World Series of Pro Mod to complement Pro Mod? I think that's a great question. I should answer it. Bruce Barth is getting the welding helmet. Bruce, hit us with a DM. Send us a message with your address, and we will get that thing in the mail to you tomorrow. Huge shout out to Lon Damon and the whole team at Lincoln Electric. You got a Viking 2450 ADV series welding mask heading your way, the welding helmet, a bandana, a helmet sticker, 5 outside lens covers, 2 inside lens covers. This thing is, like I said, Lincoln Electric's latest, greatest welding helmet. So I hope you'll put it to good use, or at least put it in the hands of somebody that will. To answer your question, Bruce, how did we decide what other classes to have at the World Series? I just asked JT.
Yeah.
And I said, JT, what do you want to do, big dog? And he hit me back. But no, the truth is that we really
Bruce
did
Barth
labor.
is a welder. Perfect.
Well, this is fantastic. Yeah. So this was a real tough one, because one of the things that we all get into, right, is having everybody. Like, we want all of the homies there, right? We want to invite everybody. And guess what? Everybody races a different type of car, but we really did want to focus in on things that we thought would complement the World Series of Pro Mod. So first and foremost, my immediate rule was I didn't want anything on the property that would upstage a Pro Mod car. So no nitro, no top alcohol stuff, none of that. Nothing that could possibly make our Pro Mod show look lesser than what it was. Secondly, I didn't want anything there that could be mistaken for a Pro Mod. As much as I love Top Sportsman drag racing, and in hindsight, I do think there may be a place for Top Sportsman. I'm not sure. It's probably one of the most competitive and successful classes that exist in drag racing today. I mean, there are so many people that race at a high level, have world-class equipment and Top Sportsman, that it's hard to turn a blind eye to it. But their cars have gotten so fast over the years that we would have had Top Sportsman cars that potentially could have qualified for the World Series of Pro Mod. And I just felt that would have flown in the face of trying to put on a dedicated Pro Mod show. So we married Mountain Motor Pro Stock to Pro Modified. I think that was a fantastic compliment, in my opinion, a fantastic compliment to Pro Modified drag racing. We followed that up with Extreme Front Wheel Drive and Factory Shootout, and then we had Top Dragster and our Super Pro division. So moving forward, I do think that we will probably move around some of our supporting classes. You know what I'm saying? I think every year it'll be different is really what I would like to do, is have it be a standalone deal that we're going to have Pro Mod. Obviously, our co-main event will be Mountain Motor Pro Stock for the foreseeable future. But I think everything else is open. Everything else is, I've got some cool ideas up my sleeve that I would like to roll out for 2024, and I plan on that. But one of the things that I really want to do is get more local racers involved. Some of the most enjoyable people to talk to during the Bradenton, during the World Series of Pro Mod, and some of the people that are the most excited about being there are the guys that race at BMP every weekend, that support the local points races and support the local points championship. And I just really want to open the door to more of those teams, because you get some organic local enthusiasm and energy when you bring out the locals and you don't turn those folks away. So that's something near and dear my heart. I mean, I grew up
when
parking in the grass, man. You know what I'm saying?
When we were at Bandamere, and it was Wednesday night for their streetcar night, which is huge there. And the Pro Mods came up to just do a quick test hit, and those guys just being in the same lanes, and there's Pro Mods coming around skirting the side of them, and they were just
Dude, it happened at Orlando.
Awesome.
Do you remember being?
Yeah.
I remember being at the Orlando World, the World War Summer Nationals at Orlando Speed World Dragway in 2020 and 21. Primarily in 2020, though, when we had I think we had an 80 or 100 car bracket race. And talking to these local racers that go to the Orlando Speed World every weekend, they're in the staging lanes with Erica Enders and Jeg Coughlin and Greg Anderson. And these guys were out of their minds excited. Yeah. And I just love that. I love creating experiences for people. And that's something that I want to maintain at Bradenton. So anyways, that's a big part of what the future looks like for the World Series.
Bruce Barth, send us your info. Message one of us, Wes at Drag Illustrated, Mike at Drag Illustrated, JT at Drag Illustrated, all three of us. Send us your info so we can get you that welding helmet.
I got to be honest, there's a question down here from Comb Over Racing on YouTube. How about a World Series of radial RVW for life? I'm a huge fan of radial racing. I mean, despite some of the trash I talk or whatever, just playing games because I'm a big tire guy. I feel real race cars have big tires and wheelie bars. But I love radial racing, and I love what radial racing has done for drag racing. There are so many people that may not be involved in the sport of drag racing if it weren't for radial racing. I mean, like, what would have happened? Where would Stevie Jackson be right now? Right? I don't know. Right? I mean, radial racing was the platform. It was the launch pad for his career, and so many others. Lyle Barnett. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, there's some guys that are rolling out, bringing cars back. I mean, radial racing was and has been such an exciting thing, a real lightning rod for activity in the sport of drag racing. So I feel our sport owes the Donald Longs of the world like a real debt of gratitude, because they brought a real new, fresh excitement and enthusiasm to outlaw drag racing that hadn't been there in a while. So, however, to that point, man, I think Donald's got it on lock. I think there are three. The Radial Outlaw Series right now, there are cars being built coming out of the woodwork to go compete in that championship series. I think that's fantastic. And Donald's got 3 huge races already. And, talking about, going back to a point that was made earlier in the show, I don't want it to get watered down. I really think the secret sauce for Donald Long's Duck X Productions have been these limited endeavors, right? It started out with one race in February to start the season, and then it became one at the beginning of the season and another in October, and it kind of bookended the year. Then they brought out the Sweet 16, which it's kind of been it's seen various forms in recent years, but I would really like, what I think needs to happen, and the way that deal continues to grow, in my opinion, and maintains its relevancy, is letting people go do their other things, go race Radial Outlaws, or go run NMCA, or go run their local Cecil County Dragway deal, or down here in Texas, wherever. Go race their local stuff, or go chase points in the series, but then come to these individual King of the Hill events once or twice a year. That's, for me, that's kind of where the sweet spot is. So we do have some big news coming though. So brace yourself, because shit could get wild here real quick. So
Yeehaw.
All right, guys. So thanks everybody for joining us. Seriously, it's a huge honor every Wednesday to join each and every one of you to bench race, talk drag racing, and spread the gospel. Remember to click like, click share, click subscribe. If you're watching along on YouTube, the YouTube channel is finally growing. Finally got some momentum. I think mainly shout out to our boy Jimmy Dale, right? Huge shout out to Jimmy and the squad, because it was a real needle mover for us. But seriously, each and every one of you, we appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. It means the world to us that you join us to talk shop every Wednesday. Remember, we'll be back next week. Who do we got next week? We got a big one. Pat Musey. Pat Musey locked and loaded for the show next week. We're going to talk all things drag racing, no prep, everything going on in the Musey camp right now next Wednesday, 2 p.m.
Get an update on Lizzie.
Time. Get an update
Shout
on
out to
Lizzie.
Lizzie. I don't think we've talked about it on the show.
Yeah,
Lizzie and her breast cancer battle. I know they're deep in that right now at MD Anderson. So just wanted to give a shout out. Everybody's thinking about and praying for Lizzie and the Musey family.
And huge shout out to her family and the family at MD Anderson, man. Both my parents are cancer survivors, and MD Anderson played a tremendous role in both of their health and wellness. So, be safe at the racetrack this weekend. Keep it wide open. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thanks to their sponsors, Redline, Flow Racing, Stroud, and Lincoln for the helmet.
Yeah, appreciate y'all. We'll see you soon.
Later.
See you.